Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
This evening I'm going to talk for a little while, and then we'll have inquiry, which is an opportunity for us to meet, to explore questions, and that will be a little later this evening or this afternoon. So I wonder if you've seen the 1979 Monty Python film, The Life of Brian. There's a scene in the film where a group of people are standing towards the back of the crowd during the Sermon on the Mount. And a woman shouts, "Speak up!" And her son, rather embarrassed, says softly, "Quiet, Mum." And then the woman complains, "Well, I can't hear a thing." And I was thinking this happens frequently during my Dharma talks. Then someone in the crowd asks, "What's he saying?" And a man turns round and says, "I think it was, 'Blessed are the cheesemakers.'" And then a woman asks, "What's so special about the cheesemakers?" And the man next to her in a confident manner shares, "Well, it's obviously not to be taken literally. It refers to any manufacturer of dairy products." I find this scene very amusing and very touching, actually. These people are ourselves. We're all so drawn to hear what is being said. We want to make meaning from it, and we often struggle to do so. Suzuki Roshi once said, "I think you're all enlightened until you open your mouths." He was once in Dokusan with a student who repeated something he'd said in a talk. And Suzuki shook his head. "No," said the student, "but you said." Suzuki said, "When I said it, it was true. When you said it, it was false." Suzuki Roshi offers something from the perspective of a lifetime of practice, and his student repeats it to him, thinking she understands. They're referring to exactly the same words, but the realization is different. In the Genjo Koan, Dogen says, "We can only see and grasp as far as the power of our eye of study and practice can see. We can only see and grasp as far as the power of our eye of study and practice can see." And in her talk on Monday, Trudy referred to the fact that the family treasure doesn't come in through the front gate. And so it may be that when we realize something, there's not an eye who knows it has realized it. Maybe we don't know. In May 2012, after our second annual retreat with Flint, a number of us had lunch at Blackwell in the Lake District. I was sitting next to Flint, and looking around the cafe, I said something like, "I'm thinking, isn't it wonderful when things are run so efficiently and smoothly?" Perhaps I imagine that Flint might offer me a deep, knowing gaze and say something like, "You are indeed wise to notice and appreciate such things." What he did is to sigh and say, "Yes, perfection is attractive." So it is no surprise that I'm drawn to Blue Cliff Record Case 40, Like a Dream. Rikyu Tefu said to Nansen, Jehoshi has said that heaven and earth and I are of the same root. All things and I are one substance. Isn't that fantastic? I wonder how you imagine Nansen responded to Taifu. Nansen pointed to a flower in the garden, called Taifu to him and said, "People these days see this flower as though they were in a dream. People these days see this flower as though they were in a dream." One of the reasons I'm drawn to this koan is because I can visualize it. I sense a tender, fierce kindness in Nansen saying softly to Taifu, "Come here, look at this flower for a moment." Perhaps we all need an inner Nansen to support our inner Taifu. And he's pointing out that Taifu is caught in an idea, and of course it's a lovely idea. We all get caught in these lovely ideas. He's caught in the self-centered dream, albeit a beautiful one. There's a pointer to many koans, and this is Master Engo's pointer to case 40. He says, "When the action of the mind has stopped and is swept away, the iron tree will bloom. Can you show it? Even a crafty person will come a cropper here. Even if you excel in every way, you will still have your nostrils pierced." So, using John Dado Laurie's descriptions of this pointer, he first says, "It is the direct pointing to the mind that is the teaching of Zen. Everything else is decoration." It is the direct pointing to the mind that is the teaching of Zen. Everything else is decoration. So the first line, "When the action of the mind has stopped and is swept away, the iron tree will bloom." He says we are constantly involved with mental activity, and that mental activity separates us from what we're doing. While we involve ourselves with past and future, we miss the moment-to-moment awareness of life. The second part, can you show it? He says, without opening your mouth, can we show it? And this is me now. Can we show it through how we live our precious lives, through what we do and express, rather than what we say? Perhaps Trudy's flowers, Lynn's cards, Jan's deep care, Mary's newsletter. And these are things that we do, but also can we express our understanding in how we are, just how we are. John Berger writes about how Rembrandt expressed the oneness that Taifu is referring to, this oneness. He says of Rembrandt, the key to his vision was Hôtel Dieu, he, she in us. When he painted freely, those he loved or imagined or felt close to, he tried to enter their corporeal space as it existed at that precise moment. He tried to enter their Hôtel Dieu. For Rembrandt, this embrace was perhaps synonymous with the act of painting, and both were just this side of prayer. The next line, even a crafty person will come a cropper here. John Dado Laurie says, you can act as though you understand. You can even believe it, but unless it's your own being, your own experience, you have separated yourself from it. And the final line, even if you excel in every way, you will still have your nostrils pierced. Nansen took him like a bull with a nose ring and led him around. He's not free. He's caught in the words and idea that describe reality and is missing the reality itself. The minute he opens his mouth, he reveals his point of attachment. So let's look a little at the two single practice principles inspired by the recent talk we listened to by Kuan Franz and so skillfully and generously offered by Jan as a weekly practice. And the two single practice principles are pausing before meeting and eating mindfully. So my questions about these are: what do these single practices open us to in terms of freedom, awakening, and ease of suffering? How do they allow intimacy and an appropriate response in each moment? And where do we get caught by them? So, regarding pausing before meeting, pausing for me has an affinity with slowness. And it's tempting to think that slowness is essential to Zen Buddhism. This, in my view, is where we get caught. I was Flint's Jisha during a retreat in Switzerland, taking part in the ceremony of opening the Zendo, following him into the Zendo with the incense and handing it to him at the altar. I imagined we might enjoy a long, slow pause after the incense had been lit, and we would walk slowly into the Zendo together. No, I struggled to keep up with him. He walks fast. I was caught with an idea of practice. In the beautiful practice Jan describes of taking a short pause, 1 or 2 breaths before meeting another person, it's important, I think, to remember it's an experiment. We need to remember not to get lost in it. It's important to track the response of the other person with whom we're pausing. So intimacy is offered rather than a practice that we're trying to do from a separate sense of self. Let's look at mindful eating. I practiced for a number of years with Thich Nhat Hanh's community of interbeing. And one of their central mindfulness practice is to eat mindfully. It is a beautiful practice alongside the other essentially quite slow practices. I assumed from it that all Buddhists eat slowly and do things slowly. I was once driving Flint from Lancaster to Sheffield, and we stopped at a pub on the Snake Pass. I noticed my teacher wasn't eating slowly. So I asked him tentatively, "Don't all Buddhists eat slowly and mindfully?" And he replied, "No," and continued eating. The idea that we should all eat mindfully is questionable and requires a very skilled response, a response to the context of what we're doing. For example, when you're surrounded by young children, Trudy and I once lived in a community which included young children and babies. We all made our way through the chaos of meals as courageously as we could. There was one member of our community, a father who was a macrobiotic, wedded to eating slowly, to chewing each mouthful of rice 100 times. As you can imagine, he was seldom available for the post-meal tasks of washing up, tidying, and putting children to bed. There's a wonderful book called Training in Compassion by Norman Fisher, and there's a Lojong group we have here at Nothing Missing, which explore and practice these Lojong practices. Slogan 2, returning to dreams, is see everything as a dream. See everything as a dream. The important thing about this slogan, the effect it is trying to coax us into, is relief. The same relief that comes when you wake up from a nightmare and your whole body suddenly relaxes because you realize that the dire situation you seemed to be in a moment ago is actually okay. It was just a dream. And so the instruction is to follow seeing everything as a dream for however long your group is doing that, and then to explore how that goes. 2 slogans later, don't get stuck on peace. What don't get stuck on peace means is more or less, forget, see everything as a dream. You might be thinking, this is great, everything is empty, everything is a dream, just like the slogan says. There isn't any person in there really, there is just awareness itself. So I'm free of all my self-worries and I can enjoy life a lot more. What the slogan "Don't Get Stuck on Peace" is saying that when you start thinking like that, you're caught all over again. It's too easy to make these slogans into belief systems. The important thing is to hold them lightly and don't think you've understood them. They're just devices. They may not be true at all. I'm going to finish with Master Setcho's verse from Case 40 of the Blue Cliff Record. And as I say it, I would invite you to try not to, well, first of all, notice what you do as you hear things. What does your mind do? Directly pointing to the mind that you're engaging with it in. What else could you do with it? You know, is there something else you can do with this verse? Could you paint? Could you dance? Could you make a vase of flowers? What is knowing this verse without actually getting caught by it? So I'll say it twice. Hearing, seeing, touching and knowing are one and not one. Mountains and rivers should not be viewed in the mirror. The frosty sky, the setting moon at midnight, with whom will the serene waters of the lake reflect the shadows cold in a clear pool? Hearing, seeing, touching and knowing are one and not one. Mountains and rivers should not be viewed in the mirror. The frosty sky, the setting moon at midnight, with whom will the serene waters of the lake reflect the shadows cold in a clear pool? Thank you.